Hi, and welcome to Federal Appraisal LLC's video series. Since the main goal of most appraisal work is to determine and to report an opinion of value, it is particularly important to define what the word value means. In this video, we will discuss the definition of market value. Different from moral values such as honesty and trustworthiness, the appraisal definition of value pertains to economic, financial, or accounting values. There are many different types of such value, of which market value is but one. There are also a number of variations on the concept of market value. Here, you can see a list of several different types of value. Some are types of market value, some are similar or related to market value, and others are quite different from market value. While laypeople may sometimes use these various terms of value interchangeably, there are critical differences, and care should be taken to use the proper terms when preparing an appraisal. The definition of market value typically includes the following conditions. The most probable price. The most probable price is not necessarily the highest price. There must be balance between highest price and most probable price in appraisal. What appraisers aim for is something like the most probable and highest price. For example, imagine a sale in a market that is clearly substantially above or below the typical price for that market. The sale is not an appropriate indicator of market value because it is not probable. Alternatively, imagine a land parcel that could just as probably be developed as either offices or retail, but retail development proves to yield a higher land value. In this circumstance, the value based on retail uses of the land is the market value because it is among the probable uses but has a higher value. As of a specified date. Since prices change with time, it is essential to specify the date that market value is estimated. If nothing else, market-wide appreciation or depreciation may cause the value to change over time. Since the value of a property today is not likely to be the same as the value at a future date, the appraiser must say what date the value is effective for. In cash, or in terms equivalent to cash, or in other precisely revealed terms. Since terms and conditions of a sale can impact the amount of cash conveyed for an asset, it is essential that an appraiser must define the terms and conditions of the transaction. For example, special financing beneficial to the buyer can increase the cash paid to the seller by the buyer. Usually, this means the appraiser defines terms and conditions as if normal, usual, or typical. Of course, a value can be estimated subject to special terms and conditions as long as the appraiser discloses them. But then, that value may or may not properly be called market value. For specified rights or interests. As with any appraisal assumption, it is essential to disclose exactly what is being appraised, such as a fee simple estate, a leased fee estate, a controlling interest, a partial interest, and more. There are a great number of possible rights and interests in an asset, each with its own value. Appraisers must clearly define what interests are included in the appraisal. After a reasonable exposure to market. An asset can often sell for a higher price if given more time on the market. Alternatively, an unusually short marketing period may prevent an asset from selling at full market value, as buyers often demand a substantial amount for the risk of acting quickly to close the transaction without normal due diligence. Therefore, it is essential to report in the appraisal the assumption for exposure time on the market. In a competitive market, under all conditions, requisite to a fair sale. Market value can only be under fair and competitive conditions. Assuming the asset will be put to its highest and best use. Market value assumes the property will be used for its reasonable and probable highest and best use under 4 tests: physical possibility, legal permissibility, financial feasibility, and maximal productivity. Highest and best use is a complex topic which we cover in more detail in another video. With the buyer and seller each acting willingly, ably, prudently, knowledgeably, reasonably informed, and for self-interest, and assuming that neither is under undue duress. Questions about willingness and undue duress can come up when appraisers examine comparable transactions, where either party might have been under atypical pressure for a variety of possible reasons, such as foreclosures, forced sales, short sales, or other reasons. Such transactions do not indicate market value and are typically excluded from the appraisal. Similarly, All parties to a transaction are assumed to be knowledgeable, reasonably informed, and acting in their own best interest. Any value that does not meet all these conditions is not a market value. Furthermore, any comparable data used in the appraisal to determine market value must also meet all of these conditions, and any variations from these conditions must be appropriately adjusted for. For example, sales comparable data that is not arm's length or does not meet any other condition of the definition of market value must be excluded from the use in the appraisal, unless the appraiser can properly adjust for the deviation from market terms. Similarly, income and expense data used in an income approach to value or cost data used in the cost approach to value that does not meet the conditions inherent in the definition of market value must also be properly adjusted or excluded from use. Market value must not be confused with price. Where price is a transaction amount, the market value is the underlying value of the asset as defined earlier. There are any number of reasons why a price might diverge from market value, such as duress, poor management, or special terms or conditions in the transaction. Not every price indicates market value. Market value definitions can and do differ under different regulations and in different jurisdictions. These differences can have major impacts on the appraised value in question. There are several commonly used sources for definitions of market value. The United States Department of Treasury's definition is the most commonly used definition because bank financing appraisals are the most common types of appraisals. However, their definition would not be appropriate for the use in many other circumstances. Other definitions of market value are also provided by the IRS, the SEC, the International Valuation Standards, and the Uniform Appraisal Standards for Federal Land Acquisitions, or Yellow Book. Each state also uses a specific definition for condemnation purposes and a specific definition for property taxation purposes. The Uniform Standards of Appraisal Practice, or USPAP, does not explicitly define market value. Instead, under USPAP, the appraiser is responsible for identifying the appropriate definition of value to be used in each appraisal. At a minimum, USPAP requires the appraiser to explain the following items, which are directly related to the definition of market value. Identification of specific property rights to the appraised, such as fee simple, leased fee, easements, right-of-ways, and more. The effective date of the opinion of value, and specifications as to whether cash, terms equivalent to cash, or other precisely described financing terms are assumed as the basis of the appraisal. At Federal Appraisal, we work closely with clients and their counselors to ensure that the correct definition of value is utilized for the specific purpose and use of the appraisal, whether it is market value for any given agency or jurisdiction, or any other type of value. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe down below.